Hey guys, welcome back to more mother-in-law entitled parents stories. In today's Ripe Stories video, what would you do if your mother-in-law vanished for 20 years only to return out of nowhere and then demand that you sign over the deed to your house? My wife has a heart of gold and let her stay in our guest room. However, that single act of kindness almost cost us our son. Here is why no good deed goes unpunished. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, Karen Mother-in-Law Demands I Give Her My House. So let me tell you about the most insane woman I've ever had the misfortune of meeting. My wife's mom is the kind of person who makes you question how some people function in society. This woman abandoned my wife when she was a little kid, just up and left one day because being a parent was too stressful for her delicate constitution. Fast forward more than 20 years and suddenly she wants back in our lives because she is broke and needs someone to fund her lifestyle. But anyway, my wife and I met in college. She was this incredibly strong, independent woman who had basically raised herself after her mom walked out. Her dad did his best, but he was working 2 jobs just to keep them afloat. She put herself through school, graduated with honors, and built an amazing career in marketing. We've been married for 8 years now and have a 6-year-old son who is the light of our lives. About 6 months ago, my wife got a call out of nowhere. She went completely pale while talking to whoever was on the other end, and when she hung up, she just sat there staring at the phone. "Who was that?" I asked. "My mother," she said quietly. "She wants to meet for coffee." I knew enough about my wife's history to understand why this was such a big deal. This woman had caused so much pain and now she was just calling like nothing had happened. But my wife, being the forgiving person she is, decided to give her a chance. The coffee meeting was apparently a disaster. Her mother showed up dressed like she was going to some fancy event, complained about the coffee shop being too loud, and she spent the entire time talking about how hard her life had been since the divorce. Not once did she apologize for abandoning her daughter. Instead, she kept going on about how she was finding herself and how being a young mother had been such a burden. Then came the real reason for the reunion. She was broke. Her latest boyfriend had kicked her out. She had no job and she needed somewhere to stay, just temporarily of course, just until she got back on her feet. My wife, against my better judgment, said she would think about it, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. Part of her wanted to help, but the bigger part knew that this was a terrible idea. "She is my mother," my wife said when we discussed it later. "Maybe she has changed." "People don't change that dramatically," I replied, "especially not people who abandon their children without a second thought." But my wife has a good heart, sometimes too good for her own sake. And yeah guys, just to quickly interject here, do you think a person that abandoned her kid can really change that much? I think I would agree with OP here, that seems pretty much impossible, but let me know what you think in the comments, and while you're at it, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to not miss my daily uploads. Thank you for the support. So we agreed that her mom could stay in our guest room for 2 weeks maximum, with strict rules about contributing to household expenses and helping with chores. The woman moved in 3 days later with enough luggage for a month-long vacation. And yeah, right from the start she acted like she owned the place. She rearranged our kitchen because it wasn't organized properly, criticized how we were raising our son, and made snide comments about everything from our furniture to our food choices. "This couch is so uncomfortable," she announced on her second day. "When I had my own place, I only bought quality furniture. You really should invest in better pieces." My wife tried to keep the peace, but I could see the stress building. Her mom would make little digs constantly, always framed as helpful suggestions or constructive criticism, but the worst part was how she treated our son. She would openly criticize his behavior in front of him, tell us we were too lenient, and make comments about how children in her day were better behaved. Our kids started asking why grandma was so mean all the time, and after the first week I pulled my wife aside and said that we needed to have a conversation about extending her stay. 2 weeks was already feeling like 2 months. "I know she's difficult," my wife said, "but she is family." "Family doesn't treat you like this," I replied. "She is taking advantage of your kindness." That evening, her mother announced that she needed more time to find a suitable living situation, not just a few extra days, but potentially several months. She had decided that our guest room was perfectly adequate for her needs, and she would be happy to stay as long as necessary. "Actually," I said, "we agreed on 2 weeks, and that timeline has not changed." She gave me this look, like I had just suggested she sleep on the streets. Well, I certainly cannot be expected to find quality housing in such a short time frame. I have standards, you know. The entitlement was breathtaking. Here we were, providing free room and board to someone who had abandoned her own child, and she was acting like we owed her luxury accommodation. Things escalated quickly after that. She started making demands instead of requests. She wanted us to buy different foods because she did not like the brands we used. She complained that our house was too cold and ran up our heating bill. She criticized my wife's cooking, my parenting, and even had the audacity to suggest that we redecorate our living room to be more welcoming. The breaking point came when she announced that she had invited some friends over for dinner without even asking us first. "I told them that you would be cooking," she said to my wife casually. "They are so excited to meet my daughter and see how well you've done for yourself." My wife looked stunned. "Mom, you cannot just invite people to our house without even asking." "Oh, don't be so rigid." She waved her hand dismissively. "It's just a few friends. Besides, I've been bragging about what a wonderful cook you are." I stepped in at that point and I said, "You need to call your friends and cancel. This is our home, not your social club." That is when I saw the real her come out. The fake sweetness disappeared and she got this cold, calculating look in her eyes. "You know what your problem is?" she said, pointing at me. "You think you can control my relationship with my daughter. You've turned her against her own family." "I didn't turn her against anyone," I replied calmly. "You did that all by yourself when you walked out on her." As you can imagine, she absolutely lost it. She started screaming about how I had no right to judge her, how I had stolen her daughter, and how I didn't deserve to have a family when I was keeping her from hers. The whole thing was just completely unhinged. My wife tried to calm her down, but she just kept going, saying, "You don't understand what I've been through. I sacrificed everything for this family, and this is how I'm being repaid." "You didn't sacrifice anything," my wife said quietly. "You left. You chose to leave." "I was young. I made mistakes. But I'm here now trying to make things right, and he is preventing me from having a relationship with my own daughter." The conversation ended with her storming off to her room and slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. My wife was shaken and our son was hiding in his room because of all the yelling. That night, my wife and I had a long talk. I could see she was finally starting to understand what kind of a person her mother really was. The woman who had walked back into her life was not a changed person seeking redemption or something. She was the same selfish individual who had abandoned her kid, just older and more desperate. 2 weeks, I said firmly. Then she goes, no matter what sob story she comes up with. My wife nodded, tears in her eyes. I really thought maybe this time would be different. But the next morning, her mother acted like nothing had happened. She made breakfast like she was the hostess of the house and chatted cheerfully about her plans for the day. The sudden mood swing was almost more unsettling than the screaming. When we reminded her about the 2-week deadline, she laughed it off, saying, "Oh, that's just a suggestion. I'm sure we can work something out that benefits everyone." "It's not a suggestion," I said. "It's what we agreed to." "Well, agreements can be modified," she replied with that fake smile once again. "I'm family after all. Family takes care of each other." The audacity was incredible. She was acting like we were being unreasonable for expecting her to honor the terms she agreed to. Over the next few days, she ramped up her manipulation tactics. She would make comments about how lonely she had been all these years, how she had made mistakes but was trying to change, how families should forgive and support each other through difficult times. When that did not work, she switched to guilt trips about how successful we were compared to her difficult circumstances. "You got this beautiful house," she said one morning, gesturing around our kitchen. "You got good jobs, a wonderful son, and I have nothing. Surely you can spare one little room for your own family." "Mom, this is not about money or space," my wife tried to explain. "This is about boundaries and respect." "Boundaries?" she scoffed. "Since when do families need boundaries?" By the way, guys, I should have dropped the mic in that situation. She further said, "I'm your mom. I gave birth to you, I changed your diapers and fed you and raised you." "For 8 years, my wife said quietly, "and then you left." "I've explained that. I was going through a difficult time, but I'm here now, and I want to be part of your lives." The conversation kept going in circles. No matter what we said, she had an excuse or a justification. In her mind, the fact that she had given birth to my wife meant that she was entitled to whatever she wanted from us. When the 2 weeks were up, we sat her down for a final conversation. We had found her several affordable apartments in the area and even offered to help with the security deposit. We were being more than fair considering everything. "I'm not ready to move yet," she announced like she was discussing the weather. "I need more time to find something more suitable." "You've had 2 weeks," I replied. "Plus we have shown you several good options."
"Those places are beneath my standards. I cannot be expected to live in some rundown apartment complex."
"Those apartments are perfectly fine," my wife said. "They are clean, safe and affordable."
"Affordable?" She laughed bitterly. "Do you hear yourself? You're talking about your own mom like she's some charity case. I deserve better than affordable."
And that is when she dropped the bombshell that showed us exactly how delusional she really was.
"Actually, I've been thinking, this arrangement is working out quite well. Why don't they just stay here permanently? You have plenty of space and I can help with your son."
My wife and I just stared at her. The woman who had been criticizing our parenting for 2 weeks now wanted to help raise our child. "That's not happening," I said firmly.
"Why not?"
she demanded.
"I'm family. This is what families do."
"Well, families don't abandon their children and then show up 20 years later expecting free housing," I replied.
"I've explained about my past mistakes. I'm trying to make amends here."
Making amends would involve acknowledging what you did wrong and asking for forgiveness," my wife said, "not moving into our house and then making demands."
"I'm acknowledging it, but dwelling on the past won't help anyone. We need to focus on the future, on building our relationship."
"Well, the future involves you getting your own place," I said. "We will help you transition, but you cannot stay here permanently." That is when she revealed just how far gone she really was.
"Fine," she said, standing up with this dramatic flourish. "If you won't let me stay here willingly, I will find other ways to be part of my grandson's life."
There was something in her tone that made me very uncomfortable. "So what does that mean?"
"It means I have rights as a grandma. If you're going to keep me from my family, I will explore other options."
My wife went pale. "Mom, what are you talking about?"
"I'm talking about what's best for my grandson. He needs his grandmother in his life, and if you two are too selfish to see that, maybe other people will."
The threat was clear, even if she wasn't saying it directly. She was implying that she might try to involve social services or pursue some kind of legal action for grandparent rights. "You need to leave," I said, standing up. "Today. Pack your things and go."
"You cannot throw me out. I have nowhere to go."
"You've had 2 weeks to figure that out, plus we've offered to help with an apartment."
"Those places are not suitable for someone of my age and circumstances."
The argument continued for another hour, with her alternating between tears, threats and guilt trips, and finally we made it clear that if she was not out by evening, we would call the police to have her removed. She left, but not quietly. There was more screaming about ungrateful children, stolen grandchildren, and threats about what she was gonna do about the situation. Our neighbors definitely got a show that day. We thought that was the end of it, but we were wrong. The harassment started almost immediately, phone calls at all hours, sometimes crying about we had abandoned her, sometimes screaming about her rights as a grandma. She would show up at my wife's workplace and cause scenes in the lobby. She started calling our friends and family members, telling them that we had thrown a poor old woman out on the street. But the most disturbing incident happened at our son's school. I got a call from the principal saying that someone claiming to be our son's grandma had shown up, demanding to pick him up early for a family emergency. The school, following proper protocol, had asked for identification and called us to confirm. When we said that we hadn't authorized any pickup and described the woman, they realized it was some kind of custody issue and refused to release our son. I raced over to the school to find her in the parking lot, pacing back and forth, talking on her phone. When she saw me, she marched over like she had every right to be there.
"They won't let me see my own grandson,"
she announced. I told them there was a family emergency. "There is no emergency," I said, trying to stay calm. "You cannot just show up at his school."
"I'm his grandma. I have rights."
"No, you don't." You have no legal relationship with him and you certainly don't have permission to pick him up from school.
"This is ridiculous. You cannot keep a child from his grandma."
The school security officer approached us at this point, having witnessed the entire exchange. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to leave the school property. If you return without permission from the kid's parents, we will have to call the police." She looked absolutely shocked that anyone would dare to tell her what to do.
"This is discrimination against grandparents. I'll be contacting my lawyer about this."
After she left, I had a long conversation with the school administration about adding her to their don't allow list and making sure all staff knew she was not authorized for any contact with our son, but that incident scared us. The fact that she tried to take our kid from school showed that she was escalating beyond just harassment. We contacted a lawyer to understand our options and document everything she was doing. The lawyer explained that while grandparents' rights exist in some circumstances, they typically apply when the grandparent has had an established relationship with the child. Since she had been absent for our son's entire life and had only met him a few times during her stay with us, she had no legal standing, but still, the harassment continued. She would drive by our house at odd hours, sometimes parking across the street and just sitting there watching. Our neighbors started commenting about the strange woman who kept showing up in the neighborhood. The final escalation happened 3 weeks after we had kicked her out. My wife and I were in the kitchen making dinner when we heard our doorbell ring repeatedly, followed by aggressive pounding on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw her standing on our porch looking completely disheveled and agitated. She was holding what appeared to be a stack of papers.
"Open this door right now," she shouted. "I know you're in there."
I called out through the door, "You need to leave our property immediately."
"I'm not leaving until we settle this. You owe me."
"We don't owe you anything. Leave now or I'm calling the cops on you."
"Yeah, go ahead, call them.
I want them to hear what you have done to me." Against my better judgment, I opened the door but kept the chain lock engaged. "What do you want?" She shoved the papers towards the gap in the door.
"These are legal documents. I'm suing you for grandparents' rights and demanding that you give me this house."
I took the papers, which turned out to be some kind of template she had printed from the internet. It was not even properly filled out, just a generic form with our names scrawled in random places. "This is not a legal document," I said. "This is just something you printed out."
"It's a formal demand. I gave birth to your wife, which means I contributed to this family. I deserve to live in this house."
"That's not how anything works."
"Yes, it is. I'm her mom. Everything she has, she owes to me. If it wasn't for me, she wouldn't exist, which means you wouldn't have her, or this house, or your precious little life."
My wife appeared behind me at that point, having heard the commotion. When her mom saw her, she immediately switched tactics.
"Sweetheart, please be reasonable. I'm your mom. I need your help, and you have the means to provide it. Just let me live here, and I'll help with everything. I can babysit, cook, clean. We can be a real family again."
"Mom, we have been through this," my wife said. "You cannot live here."
"Why not? What's wrong with me living here?"
"Everything," I said. "Your behavior, your demands, your complete lack of respect for boundaries."
"I don't have to respect boundaries from someone who stole my daughter."
"Nobody stole anyone. Your daughter chose to build a life without you because you abandoned her."
"I didn't abandon her. I was going through a difficult time."
"For 20 years?" my wife asked quietly.
"Don't be dramatic. I'm here now, trying to make things right, and you're both being completely unreasonable."
The conversation was basically going nowhere. She was completely convinced that she was the victim in the situation and that we owed her something for the simple fact that she had given birth to my wife.
"I want this house," she announced suddenly. "You can go live with her father. He has a house too. I need this one."
The audacity was breathtaking. "This is our house. We bought it, we pay the mortgage, we live here with our kid."
"But I'm alone. I have nothing. You have each other and good jobs. You can live anywhere."
"I need this house more than you do." "Need doesn't create ownership," I replied.
"It does when it comes to family. Family takes care of each other."
"You're not acting like family," my wife said. "You're acting like a stranger who thinks that we owe you something."
"I'm acting like your mom, the woman who gave you life."
"The woman who gave birth to me and then walked away," my wife corrected. "Those are not the same thing." That seemed to break something in her. The fake reasonableness disappeared completely, and she started screaming about ungrateful children, stolen grandchildren, and how we had ruined her life by not giving her what she deserved.
"I should be living in this house. You should be taking care of me. I'm your mom."
"You're nothing to me," my wife said quietly, and I could see it took everything she had to say those words. A mother doesn't abandon her kid. A mother does not show up 20 years later making demands. A mother does not try to kidnap her grandson from school.
"I was not kidnapping him. I was trying to spend some time with him."
Without permission, by lying about an emergency.
"Because you won't let me see him."
Because you have no relationship with him, and you have proven that you cannot be trusted. She tried to push past us into the house at that point, but I blocked her way. "You need to leave now.
"This should be my house," she screamed. "You stole my daughter, you turned her against me, and now you're living in the house that should be mine."
"We are calling the police," I said, pulling out my phone.
"Good, call them. I want them to hear how you have treated me."
I dialed while she continued ranting. When I told the dispatcher that we had someone trespassing on our property who was refusing to leave and making threats, her tune changed immediately.
"Wait, don't tell them I'm threatening you. I'm not threatening anyone."
"You just demanded our house and tried to force your way inside."
"That is not threatening, that's just negotiating."
Suffice to say, the police arrived within 10 minutes. 2 officers approached while she was still on our porch, now trying to look like the reasonable victim.
"Officers, thank goodness you are here," she said in this sweet voice. "These people have locked me out of my own home."
The officer looked confused.
"This is my daughter's house," she explained. "I've been living here and they've illegally evicted me."
I showed the officer our mortgage documents and explained that she had been a guest for 2 weeks with a clear end date, which had passed 3 weeks ago. "Ma'am, if this is not your residence and the homeowners have asked you to leave, you need to go," the officer explained.
"But I'm family, you cannot trespass family."
"Well, actually we can. Property ownership doesn't change based on family relationships." That is when she made the mistake that sealed her fate. She tried to push past the officers to get to our door, screaming about how we owed her the house, and she was not leaving until we gave her what she deserved. When my wife stepped forward to try to calm her down, her mom actually slapped her hard and shoved her enough that my wife stumbled backwards and fell. "That's it," I said, stepping between them. "She just assaulted my wife." The officers immediately moved to restrain her, and she completely lost it. She started screaming about police brutality, family rights, and how everyone was conspiring against her. She actually tried to hit one of the officers while they were trying to handcuff her.
"You cannot arrest me. I'm the victim here. They stole my house."
"Ma'am, you're under arrest for trespassing, assault, and resisting arrest," the officer said calmly while she continued struggling.
"This is discrimination. I'm being persecuted for trying to have a relationship with my family."
They loaded her into the patrol car while she screamed threats about suing us, calling social services, and making sure we would regret treating her this way. After they left, my wife and I just stood in our doorway trying to process what had just happened. Our quiet evening had turned into a complete nightmare, but at least it was now finally over. The legal proceedings were straightforward. She was charged with trespassing, assault, and resisting arrest, and her public defender tried to argue it was just a family dispute that got out of hand, but the officer's testimony about her behavior made it clear that this was not just a misunderstanding. She ended up pleading guilty to reduced charges and getting time behind bars, followed by a restraining order that prohibited her from contacting us or coming within 500 feet of our home, workplace, or our son's school. Our son stopped asking about the mean grandma, and my wife started seeing a therapist to work through the complicated emotions of having to completely cut ties with her own mother. "I know I made the right choice," she told me one evening, "but it still hurts." I kept hoping she had changed, that maybe there was still a chance for some kind of relationship, but she showed you exactly who she is, I replied. Multiple times, the person you were hoping to reconnect with does not exist. When her mom was released from jail, by the way, we have expected more harassment, but nothing happened. We heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved to another state, presumably to find new people to take advantage of. The restraining order is still in effect, and we've made sure our son's school and our workplaces have copies, and we've also installed a security system at home just in case she ever decides to make another appearance. And yeah guys, I would say to OP, your mother-in-law is a textbook narcissistic parasite. I mean, she abandoned her child when parenting got hard and only crawled back when she ran out of hosts to leech off of. You gotta imagine the absolute audacity to demand your house, the house that you pay the mortgage on, just because she gave birth, which is honestly mind-boggling to me. That is not a mother, that is just a biological donor who thinks that she bought a lifetime subscription to your bank account. The transition from the, "oh, I am the fragile sweet grandma who just wants to love her family," to "I'm gonna legally expropriate your real estate," is just wild. It really highlights how these extreme narcissists operate. They have this completely warped transactional view of relationships. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think about this one? And the next one is a comment from Reddit which said, obviously the mother-in-law is unhinged, delusional and dangerous. Trying to take your kid from school and physically assaulting your wife is indefensible. She belongs behind bars for that and far away from your family. But honestly, you and your wife played a massive role in letting this fire get out of control. Your wife knew that this woman abandoned her for 2 decades. You knew that she was toxic from the very first coffee meeting, and yet you still let her move into your house where your 6-year-old kid lives. Why would you expose a young impressionable kid to that kind of toxicity? So then when she started showing massive red flags, you guys kept having conversations and trying to keep the peace instead of just kicking her out immediately. You even offered to pay a security deposit for her. So that means you enabled her entitlement for weeks, which escalated her delusion to the point where she thought she could legally demand your house. You guys need to stop being doormats because your lack of a backbone actively put your son in danger. And yeah guys, I gotta say that might be one of the first unhinged Reddit comments that I might actually agree with, because OP and the wife definitely need to grow a backbone and stop letting these entitled, or well, in this case, this crazy entitled mother-in-law into their life. Because as the comment said, this could have extremely negative consequences for the kid. And now let's read a petty revenge story about in-laws, which is titled "You Get Exactly What You Asked For." So my in-laws are visiting for Christmas. I'm working a half day today and was planning on taking our toddler to daycare because mother-in-law usually has a ton of baking and wrapping to do at our place in preparation for the big day, and since we pay a huge percentage of our income towards childcare, we should use the service. This would still allow us to have 5 full days altogether. I figured the adults all to be highly productive while kiddo and I were out, and nobody would have to wrap presents until 2 AM on Christmas morning. However, when I relayed my plan, I immediately got hit with, "But we came all this way." So you know what? Fine, you asked for it, you got it. I immediately cancelled childcare. Last night reality set in. Her, "You're still going to work?" Me, "Yeah." "Who will watch the kiddo?" I shrugged. There are 3 adults plus husband in the house, it's fine. Mother-in-law, "But it won't be a lot of work for husband to watch kiddo all day?" It's no big deal, but kiddo is a very busy toddler these days. I'm sure they'll wear each other out and have a blast doing it.
"Well, I was counting on help wrapping."
I cancelled daycare already, I guess you will need to make do. Now I am in my ultra-quiet office drinking an eggnog latte and soaking in the last peaceful moments I'm likely to get before the end of the year. And yeah guys, thanks for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.